Have you ever felt like your mind is constantly running, analyzing everything, questioning everything, and sometimes even exhausting you? While most people associate high intelligence with success, clarity, and control, there's a side of it that almost no one talks about. A quiet, internal struggle that only people with high IQ tend to experience. Because the truth is, the smarter you are, the harder it can sometimes be to simply exist. One of the biggest struggles is overthinking. High IQ individuals don't just think, they overanalyze. Every situation is broken down into layers, possibilities, and outcomes. A simple conversation can turn into hours of mental replay. Did I say the right thing? What did they mean by that tone? What if there's something I'm missing? Their brain doesn't switch off. It keeps digging deeper, even when there's nothing left to find. And this leads to a strange paradox. They often understand things better than others, but feel less certain about their decisions. Because when you see too many possibilities, choosing one becomes harder. Then comes the burden of awareness. Highly intelligent people tend to see reality more clearly. The flaws in systems, the contradictions in people, the hidden motives behind actions. While others may live comfortably in simplified views of the world, they notice the cracks. And once you see those cracks, you can't unsee them. This heightened awareness can slowly turn into dissatisfaction. Things that seem normal to others start feeling meaningless. Small talk feels empty, routine feels suffocating, and chasing common goals sometimes feels pointless. It's not arrogance, it's disconnection. Another silent struggle is loneliness. Not because they are alone physically, but because they feel misunderstood. It's hard to find people who match their depth of thinking or curiosity. Conversations often feel surface level. They crave meaning, depth, and intellectual connection, but rarely find it. So even in a room full of people, they can feel completely isolated. And over time, they may stop trying. They start simplifying their thoughts when they speak, holding back ideas, pretending to agree just to avoid long explanations. Not because they want to, but because it's easier. But that creates another problem: identity conflict. When you constantly filter yourself to fit in, you begin to lose touch with who you really are. You start asking questions like, am I being real? Or, is this version of me just what others can handle? And that internal conflict becomes exhausting. There's also the pressure of potential. People often expect high IQ individuals to achieve something extraordinary. You're so smart, you can do anything. But what they don't realize is that expectation can feel like a burden. Because having many options doesn't always feel like freedom. Sometimes it feels like pressure to choose the perfect path. And when things don't go as planned, they are often their own harshest critics. They don't just fail, they analyze their failure deeply, replay it, and question their own abilities. Which can lead to something unexpected: self-doubt. Yes, even highly intelligent people doubt themselves. Because intelligence doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it often amplifies it. And slowly, all of this builds up into a mental state where their greatest strength, their mind, starts to feel like their biggest challenge. But this is only part of the story. Because what looks like a struggle on the surface often hides a deeper truth. And understanding that truth can completely change how you see intelligence itself. What if the very struggles you're experiencing are actually signs of something deeper going right? Because the same mind that overthinks is also capable of extraordinary insight. The same awareness that makes the world feel heavy is what allows you to see beyond illusions. And that loneliness you feel? It's not always a weakness. Sometimes it's a filter. It removes shallow connections and pushes you towards something more real, more meaningful. But here's where most high IQ individuals get stuck. They try to escape their mind instead of learning how to work with it. They see overthinking as the enemy, when in reality, it just needs direction. Because an undirected intelligent mind becomes chaotic, but a focused one becomes powerful. The key is not to think less, but to think better. Instead of analyzing everything, start choosing what actually deserves your mental energy. Not every situation needs a deep breakdown. Not every thought deserves your attention. Clarity comes not from more thinking, but from selective thinking. Another shift is learning to accept imperfection. When you can see hundreds of possibilities, you naturally want the best one. But life doesn't reward perfect decisions, it rewards executed ones. Progress will always beat perfection. And once you understand this, something changes. You stop waiting for the ideal path and start creating your own. Then there's the issue of connection. You may not find depth everywhere, and that's okay. Not every conversation needs to be profound. Not every person needs to understand you completely. But that doesn't mean meaningful connections don't exist. It just means they're rare. And rare things take time to find. Instead of trying to fit in everywhere, focus on finding environments where your depth is valued. where curiosity is welcomed, where ideas are explored, not dismissed. Because the problem is not always that you're too different. Sometimes you're just in the wrong environment. And when you finally find the right one, everything starts to feel different. You don't have to shrink your thoughts. You don't have to simplify your personality. You don't have to pretend. You can just be. There's also something important you need to realize. Your intelligence is a tool, not your identity. If you attach your self-worth only to how smart you are, every mistake will feel like a personal failure. But when you see intelligence as something you use, not something you are, you give yourself space to grow, to fail, to learn, to evolve. And that's where real strength comes from. Because true intelligence is not about knowing more, it's about understanding better. Not about complexity, but about clarity. And maybe the biggest shift of all is this. You stop seeing your mind as something that holds you back, and start seeing it as something that needs guidance. Because a powerful mind without direction creates confusion, but a powerful mind with purpose, that changes everything. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by your own thoughts, disconnected from others, or frustrated by the way your mind works, understand this: you're not broken. You're just operating on a level that requires a different kind of balance. And once you learn that balance, what once felt like a struggle becomes your greatest advantage.